Everyone. I'm Ted Gray, multimedia librarian at the Deerfield Public Library. I'm back with another short review of a film from our Canopy streaming collection. I hope you enjoy it. Once again, if you don't know, we have a great free movie streaming service called Canopy. Go to the Deerfield Public Library website, deerfieldlibrary.org, click on the Media tab, and you'll see a link for Canopy. You can download the Canopy app and install it on your streaming devices like a Roku or an Amazon Fire Stick and watch up to 15 films or TV episodes a month for free with your Deerfield Public Library card. Or you can watch things from Canopy on your computer as well. There are thousands of free films to watch on Canopy. It has a lot of great movies, most of which are from more independent producers. There's also a number of films available from the Criterion Collection and a great selection of documentaries and foreign films as well. Now, I just mentioned the Criterion Collection. What is the Criterion Collection? Well, it's a curated collection of films that have been licensed for release in the United States that focuses primarily on important and classic contemporary films. It has a fantastic collection of some of the greatest foreign films of all time. And Canopy has a number of these films available to stream for free with your Deerfield Library card. One Criterion Collection film that is available on Canopy that I'd like to talk about today is the movie Breathless. Breathless is considered one of the greatest classics from the French New Wave cinema movement. It was released in 1960. It wasn't the first film to be released in the film movement, in the French New Wave, but it is considered one of the most important and most kind of long-lasting and endearing too, I think, at this point. It was directed by Jean-Luc Godard and stars Jean-Paul Belmondo as our male anti-hero and Jean Seberg as our love interest and leading lady. So what was the French New Wave? Well, it was a movement in film that wanted to change pretty much everything the way it was done at the time. They really wanted to re-examine how everything was done in a movie. They tried to be a little more experimental. You'll notice this, for instance, in Breathless with the unconventional use of jump cuts. A scene would be filmed with the camera set in place, but it would be edited so that it jumped from one scene to the next, so there would be gaps in time, sometimes a few seconds, sometimes a few minutes. Camera would jump ahead, but you would notice that, and that was something no one had really done like that at the time. They also, the directors in the French New Wave movement, experimented with visual style, the narrative, and also tried to comment on the social upheavals of the time, and you'll see all of that in Breathless. There's also subtle humor and irony in these films often. You'll see that. They also rejected the traditional film cinema, French cinema, which focused more on craft and how nice the movie looked over actual innovation and creativity. That's what the New Wave directors were more interested in. So they would do things like shoot scenes with low-budget cameras, with small crews, giving their films an almost documentary quality. They would also do things like set scenes in natural environments, in actual cafes and street scenes, instead of movie sets that were more controlled. Now, Breathless wasn't the first film made in the French New Wave. It was preceded by Truffaut's The 400 Blows and René's Hiroshima Mon Amour, both of which came out the year before. Breathless was also the first full-length feature film directed by Renoir, and it was a huge deal and huge sensation when it came out. It was a big deal in France. By the way, something else about the French New Wave was that Alfred Hitchcock was a huge influence on the New Wave directors. And that's a whole nother story, and there's a documentary about that, which I would recommend. in reverence to Hitchcock, I think, Renoir did what Hitchcock did in all of his movies and inserted himself in a scene in the movie. Look for the scene where our male lead is running from the police. He's sitting in a car with a hat and sunglasses on, trying to be inconspicuous. A gentleman buys a newspaper kind of across the street from him, sees a picture of the wanted man in the newspaper and spots him over in the car. The man with the newspaper is director Jean-Luc Godard. So, one of the other reasons that Breathless was such a sensation at the time was because of the film's female lead, Jean Seberg. She had appeared in several films before then, but this was the film where she became an icon in film history. In France, she's right up there with people like James Dean and Marilyn Monroe in terms of her look in this movie, and just it's kind of like the Marilyn blowing skirt. Her look in this movie was iconic at the time and remains so. She had a pixie haircut, which was very unusual at the time, and was a huge sensation in France, at least in Europe, and you still see that look today. She was actually, what's interesting is Jean Seberg was actually an American actress. She had started out in Hollywood, not really had much luck. And then for some reason, she became a star over in France. And in fact, she tried to go back to Hollywood several times and never really made it there. And in Hollywood, they would even do stuff like make her put on wigs because they didn't like her pixie haircut look over in Hollywood. They just didn't get it. So it was France where she was the big star. Also, and it's kind of interesting, her life is just a whole crazy, wild, unfortunately sad and tragic story as well. And they recently turned it into a film called Seberg, starring Kristen Stewart, which you can watch on Amazon Prime, and I highly recommend watching after you've watched Breathless. It's really interesting to see them right after the other. In a nutshell, Jean Seberg was married. She may or may not have had an affair with one of the leaders of the Black Panther Party in California, and this would be in the mid to late 60s. She definitely was a supporter of the Black Panther Party. Because of this, she was put on surveillance by the FBI under its COINTELPRO program. Eventually, Jean Seberg became pregnant. The FBI planted a fake news story in the LA Times claiming that she was pregnant due to an affair with the Black Panther leader and that her baby would be born black. And at the time, this was considered to be very, very scandalous, and it really kind of ruined her career. There's also talk that the FBI actually helped blacklist her in Hollywood and sabotage her career. We don't know if that's true or not, but in any case, her baby was born white. It also ended up, I believe, being a miscarriage. The baby didn't survive, and she was just so traumatized by the whole incident that years later she committed suicide, and her husband at the time blamed the FBI for her death. There's also a whole crazy thing about how she may have been murdered, and it wasn't a suicide at all. So there's actually still controversy about her death to this day. So there's a little bit of an air of tragedy watching Breathless, kind of knowing all that at this point, but it is clearly a landmark in the history of film. Highly recommended. Jean Seberg is just truly effervescent on the screen in it, and the ending of the film is another one of the iconic things in the history of movies. There's in fact debate today still about the meaning of the last words of the film. That is in part based on the difficulties sometimes of translating the French language to the English language. There's been 3 different translations, I believe, over the years, and the subtitles of the final words. The Criterion Collection version in Canopy has the latest translation, which was officially approved by the director in 2007. So I hope you check out Breathless on Canopy, and I hope you find lots of other great things on there as well. Thank you, stay healthy, and well, everyone.